They're ready to go at the Prudential Center for a big one in the Big East tonight as Seton Hall welcomes in the Xavier Musketeers. It's the Big East road trip live from the Rock. We'll get the party started next. Happy Valentine's night, everybody, and good evening from the Prudential Center. We are in Newark, New Jersey. The Big East road trip hits the Garden State as the Seton Hall Pirates gear up for a big one against the Xavier Musketeers. This one is bubblicious. Both these teams need this game in a big way. It's a critical one at the Prudential Center. Coming up on tonight's show, we'll give you the latest bracketology updates. Who's on the bubble, who's in, who's out, what's at stake in the coming weeks in the Big East. Plus, the game of the weekend coming up in college basketball is in the Big East Conference. A top 4 showdown this Saturday when number 1 UConn welcomes in number 4 Marquette. Tyler Kolek, is he good or what? We'll get to that as well. We'll do a little point counterpoint with a couple of beat reporters. But we begin with our headlines, and we begin with a critical showdown here tonight. It's Seton Hall and it's Xavier. You look at where these two teams are in the Big East standings. The Pirates at 8-5, Xavier at 7-6. So it's important for the standings, but it's also important in the metrics. Seton Hall, they got off to the hot start to conference play. They beat UConn. They beat Marquette inside this building where they've been very good this year, but they lost by 20 to Xavier back on December 23rd. Sean Miller, 3-0 against Shaheen Holloway over the last 2 seasons. For the Pirates, tonight is a really, really pivotal one for them. Right now, Mike DeCourcy has them hovering around the last 4 in and the first 4 out when it comes to the NCAA tournament conversation. So for the Hall, right now in 4th place, Creighton up to 9-5 after beating Georgetown last night. UConn at 12-1, Marquette at 10-3. This goes without saying. It is a massive game between the Pirates and the Musketeers tonight. Headline number 2, a 3-game Tuesday in the Big East, and it was an interesting night. Butler was within 2 of Marquette late, but the Golden Eagles showed why they are a Final Four level candidate. The folks here in Newark, They would disagree because when Marquette came in here, the Pirates made a statement against them. But let me tell you right now, this Marquette team, they're dynamic. They're 19-5 on the season. And last night, Tyler Kolek was after more points. Kolek, 3 of his last 4 games, he scored at least 27 points. He has been fantastic for the Marquette Golden Eagles, and the reigning Big East regular season and tournament champions are on a roll. They will take an 8-game winning streak into the matchup with Connecticut on Saturday. Elsewhere in the league, how about Providence? If you're going to Amica Mutual Pavilion, go at your own risk if you're the visitors because you're in for a long night. St. John's gave the Friars a battle. But Josh Oduro continues to be a revelation. I think he's been as great as any transfer in the Big East Conference this season. Last night, Oduro goes for 28 points as Providence took home the win over St. John's. It went down to the last possession. The Red Storm were down 3. They could not break through. And somehow, some way, Kim English's team just keeps finding ways to win. They did it last week against Creighton. They did it last night against St. John's. And that's why the Friars would be on the right side of the equation right now. When you look at the NCAA tournament picture, Fox Sports' Mike DeCourcy has Providence in the field. That's a big win for them last night over a Red Storm team that is also on the bubble. Headline number 3. Get your popcorn out because this Saturday, the number 1 and number 4 teams in the country will square off in Hartford. I'm talking about Connecticut, and I'm talking about Marquette. Now for UConn, the number 1 team in the country, they've won 12 in a row. They're the reigning national champions. They've had a spectacular season with Tristan Newton, with Cam Spencer, with Alex Caravan. Think about that winning streak here. 12, now looking for a 13th straight tonight when they take on DePaul. That game will be later this evening, 9 o'clock on CBS Sports Network. But you get Tyler Kolek versus Tristan Newton. You get Alex Caravan and Cam Spencer versus Cam Jones and David Joplin. Then you get Klingon against Iguodaro inside. That will be quite an interesting matchup. The folks here are ready for their Seton Hall Pirates. It's a big game for the Hall. This team led by Kadari Richmond, Alamir Dawes, Dylan Adewusu, and Dre Davis has been one of the most steady players in the Big East Conference. When you look at his productivity, how does the Hall respond tonight from a tough day at Villanova? They've been very good in this building. They need one of those performances, but Xavier comes a-calling with Quincy Olivari. We will talk about all that and more with the voice of the Pirates celebrating 2 decades on the mic. It's the voice of Seton Hall men's basketball, Gary Cohen. Met fans, you might know him too. He joins me next.
Saturday on Fox, Creighton battles Butler. Bam! Then Tyler Kolek leads 4th-ranked Marquette. What a game! Against top-ranked UConn. It's a huge doubleheader. Saturday on Fox.
The world's most famous arena,
Madison Square Garden.
11 teams came to New York City with one thing on their mind, a Big East title.
We've got ourselves a knockdown, drag-out battle in the Big East tournament. Dropping dimes.
Old school basketball.
You got to be strong. Madison Square Garden.
Back to the Prudential Center. The Big East road trip is in Newark, New Jersey. Seton Hall and Xavier coming your way at 7 Eastern time. The game will be televised on CBS Sports Network. He's the voice of the Pirates on the radio. He's also the voice of the New York Mets. You've heard him on the NCAA tournament. Westwood won. Pirate fans, give a warm welcome to Gary Cohen. Gary, it's great to have you here. We're in the best part of the season where you want to be in the equation. Both these teams playing tonight are hanging around the equation. This Seton Hall team, they're coming off a tough loss against Villanova, but they've beaten UConn, they've beaten Marquette here. What needs to happen for the Seton Hall Pirates to get back on track tonight?
Well, very frankly, they need to get their mojo back because they were playing as well as anybody in the country for the first month of the Big East season. And things changed after the triple overtime loss to Creighton. That was a great game. They played wonderfully. And then Kadari Richmond sat out for a couple of games, and he's come back, and they haven't played nearly as well as they played before he sat down. They were passing well, they were playing defense well, they were connected. And right now they're not connected. They really haven't played well for the last half dozen games. They could have beaten Providence, didn't have enough at the end. They had no chance at Marquette. They were probably going to beat DePaul and Georgetown anyway, no matter whether they played well or not. And then they got their clocks cleaned by Villanova. So I don't know what it takes to flip that switch, but they need to get back to where they were in January when they were playing as well as anybody.
When Kadari Richmond is ignited and in mode, how would you categorize his best?
Well, he's unstoppable. I mean, for a guy who does not have natural speed, right? He's not the quickest guard in the world. He has developed a variety of moves that enable him to get by just about anybody and put himself in positions to score, and if not, in positions to let other people score. Everybody benefits when Kadari's playing at the top of his game, and obviously they need for him to get back to that.
We have not seen the Connecticut Huskies lose a game since they were in this building.
Right.
Back on December the 20th. They've won 12 in a row. They've got DePaul tonight, but then on Saturday they get number 4 Marquette. You're a college basketball junkie. You watch the Big East. When you think about number 1 UConn versus number 4 Marquette and what those two teams can do on Saturday, what comes to mind in that matchup?
Well, the best player on the floor is Tyler Kolek. I think that 3 weeks ago you would have bet heavily against the idea that Tyler Kolek was going to win another Player of the Year award in the Big East. After what he's done the last couple of games, I wouldn't bet against him. He is just a magician on the floor. And they had to survive Butler last night. That was a hard game for them. Can I drop a Finley Bizjack on you?
Of course you can.
The 6-minute stretch that he had in the second half last night was unbelievable. Here's a guy who had barely played up until that point in the game,
Yes.
and basically Thad Matta said, "You take every shot." And he scored 16 points in a 6-minute stretch to keep them in the game. And it took Cam Jones banking in a three-pointer with 2 minutes to go to allow Marquette to survive. But getting back to your question, Kolek is magnificent, and he against Tristan Newton, that'll be a fun matchup. UConn they're really, really good. They may even be better than last year, but they don't have the star quality that Marquette has. Kolek and Iguodaro they are stars. It's going to be a fabulous game.
So we have a lot of Pirate fans here that are watching the show in person. For those watching at home, I love talking with you during this time of year because you are about to head into a little bit of your crossover where you have Mets spring training, and we all know how much you love your Metropolitans and being the voice of the New York Mets. How would you categorize these 20 years and what it's been like being the voice of Seton Hall basketball?
Well, it's been everything that I could have hoped for. I work in baseball, but I love college basketball. I mean, I've told people this before. If I could do a college basketball game on the radio 365 days a year, you'd never see me at another baseball game. Unfortunately, that's not possible. But no, seriously, the folks at Seton Hall have been fantastic to me over the last couple of decades. I have a great partner in Dave Popkin. It keeps me on the radio, which I love. It keeps me with college basketball, which I enjoy. And the Pirates have had some great teams over the couple of decades that we've been here. Probably the best year was when they won the Big East title with Isaiah Whitehead and that group. But even going back to our first year together in 04 when they beat Arizona in the NCAA tournament, we've had some great moments. And every game whether it's good or bad, I just have a blast. It's just so much fun.
4 weeks from right now, we will be playing Big East Tournament basketball. 2 teams will be on the floor gearing up, and we'll be starting that week. With that 4 weeks away, describe the Big East Tournament at Madison Square Garden and what makes it different from any other event.
Well, I think it's always been a great event. I think right now I have trouble getting into Big East Tournament mode because so many teams in the Big East right now are in the NCAA tournament bubble. And that's of greatest importance. And for Seton Hall and Xavier tonight, this is a huge game. I mean, up until Sunday, Seton Hall was kind of on the right side of the bubble. Now they're on the wrong side of the bubble. You've got 4 or 5 teams in a similar circumstance in this league right now, and that makes every game just incredibly crucial. Watching Providence and St. John's last night, I mean, that was a war. Both teams needed that game in the worst way, and it wound up being a terrific basketball game. And Josh Oduro, by the way, talk about dad strength, right?
Yes.
He missed the previous game because his son Gabriel was being born.
Yes.
He comes back and goes for 28 his first time out as a dad.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
That's a great week.
Yeah. So anyway, so this time of year, I mean, I think about Seton Hall right now. They've got 7 games to go in the regular season. They probably need to win their 4 home games, including tonight. It would certainly help them if they beat St. John's on the road. Their other 2 road games are Creighton and UConn. Those are tough assignments. So, you know, they've got a lot of work ahead of them, and these home games are so crucial. It would be a huge boost for Xavier if they win this game.
Yes.
It would be a quad 1, quad 2 borderline win, but for Seton Hall, it's a must.
Certainly feels that way. A critical game for these Seton Hall Pirates tonight. Xavier paying them a visit. We'll go point, counterpoint a little bit. We'll go more around the Big East, talk a little Player of the Year race as well. He is Gary Cohen. Gary, thanks for the time.
Thanks very much, John.
Back with more Shootaround after these messages. Welcome back to Big East Shootaround. It's the Big East road trip from the Prudential Center coming up at 7 Eastern Time. CBS Sports Network, Seton Hall welcomes in Xavier. So let's go a little point, counterpoint for the Xavier side of things. We welcome in Shelby Dermer of the Cincinnati Enquirer. Follow him on X at Enquirer with an E, Shelby. On the other side, we welcome in a man in New Jersey who needs no introduction, NJ Hoopshaven. At NJ Hoopshaven, he is Jerry Carino. Fellas, thanks for joining me. I'll start with the visitors first. So, Shelby, Xavier comes off of a tough loss to Creighton. Up until that point, though, this team had been playing some really good basketball and it hit their stride. What has changed for this team that they need to translate again here tonight?
I mean, you talked with Gary about, being this deep in the season, you just want to be in the conversation. And, looking back in the non-conference, losing to Oakland and Delaware, Xavier's happy to be here with the injuries they sustained earlier in the season, in the offseason with Fremantle and Hunter. So I think what's really changed for this team is their offense. And you look at the big three, it's Desmond Claude, Quincy Oliveri, and Davion McKnight. Desmond's the only returner, 2 transfer portal additions from Conference USA. They lead the charge offensively on a team that lacks a lot of depth, lacks a lot of bench production, and really struggles down low. So those 3 really leading the offense in January, the early parts of February, really helped them turn the season around until, like you mentioned, that Creighton loss.
So it's interesting because on the flip side of things, Seton Hall's best basketball came late December into January when they beat UConn, when they beat Marquette. They had a triple overtime loss to Creighton, and then it feels like things have been different since that game. Jerry Carino, what Seton Hall team are we in for tonight?
I have no idea. And I have been asked many times, and I have thought long and hard, and I don't know that anybody knows. And that's really been the Seton Hall season in a nutshell. Right, John?
Yes.
They looked dead in the water in November and early December. They look like a surefire NCAA tournament team for a solid 5 weeks. They've looked exhausted the last couple weeks. I just don't know.
Let's get to impact players in this game. So let's stay with Seton Hall because I think what we do know about this Seton Hall team is when number 1 plays well, they play well. When Kadari Richmond shows up and plays to the level he's capable of, it changes everybody and everything around this team. So Kadari Richmond, cue some of those highlights of him. What makes him special when on?
All right, so Richmond does everything, right? I mean, he can score at will. He gets to the rim. He's a terrific passer. He's long and difficult to defend. He can post up. He can get in the passing lanes. He makes his free throws. I mean, the guy, and he rebounds. The guy, when he wants to be, is an All-American. But can it be consistent? Can it come every night? And also, when Richmond plays well, his running mate, Alamir Dawes, plays well. It opens windows for Dawes to shoot. When Richmond is dealing and Dawes is making shots, Seton Hall has one of the very best backcourts around.
Here's the thing. When Xavier's backcourt's on, they're one of the most potent, not just in the conference, but when they are fully on around college basketball. And that's because Quincy Oliveri has been one of the best scorers in the country this season. He had 29 in that first meeting against the Pirates, a 20-point win. What have you seen from Quincy Oliveri this season?
Just on and off the court, I don't know where this Xavier team would be without him. He's one of the biggest additions, in the Big East. Obviously, you mentioned a few before we joined the set, but offensively and then really defensively, and that's why he's a key tonight with Seton Hall really not wanting to shoot the three. They're last in the Big East in three-point attempts, and that's a stark contrast from playing Villanova and Creighton back-to-back last week. So he's really developed a role where he came over from Rice and everyone thought, okay, here's our three-point shooter, here's our Adam Kunkel replacement, but he's developed a role that's bought into Sean Miller's system as a great perimeter defender, and he's a great rebounder too. I think he's second on the team in rebounds, and he was leading really after the non-conference slate, so he's really been a do-it-all guy for Xavier, and who knows where this team would be without him.
What about Desmond Claude and his sophomore leap? What have you seen?
Yeah, so he had to take the biggest jump and the quickest jump, going from a role player on a Sweet 16 team a year ago to, the leader of the pack on a team that really needed name tags in the offseason when they go to the Bahamas and get used to all the international players down there. But he's been another one where when he's on, and everyone around him's better. And his three-point shooting is coming along a little bit better. Same with Davion McKnight. But when he's in the lane, he's one of the best in the Big East.
So it's a point in this game that's coming up is Xavier can light it up from three.
Right.
Seton Hall, it has not always been their strength, but when it has, it's because Alamir Dawes gets cooking.
And Dawes on both ends, John. Dawes has to hit his threes, and he has to defend the three-point line. My guess is he will draw Oliveri. He'll be the lead defender against Oliveri. So he's probably going to play 38, 39 minutes. Oof. Like, we talk about Richmond, and we know how important he is. Dawes is 1A, and he's going to have to do it on both ends for Seton Hall to come out victorious tonight.
Those are your impact players. Gentlemen, I won't make you make a prediction for this game in front of the crowd. However, I will ask you both about the Big East and what we're seeing right now from this league. UConn and Marquette, Jerry, are finding separation. They found that separation. They're going to play each other on Saturday. What a game that'll be. Creighton then is at 9-5. This Seton Hall team's at 8-5. But there's a jumble. Seton Hall, Xavier, Providence, Butler, Villanova, and St. John's are all in everybody's last 4 in, first 8 out. Have you ever seen anything like that?
It's a weird year, and you have 2 legit national title contenders. Creighton, which I think could have Final Four run material. And then I don't know who the 4th team's going to be, who the 5th team's going to be to represent the Big East in the NCAA tournament. I have no idea. It's going to be a mad dash to the line. I want to tell you one thing about the Big East. It is never boring. I don't recall since the old days the coaches' personalities being off the chain as they are now. You never know what's going to come out of these guys' mouths, and it makes it extra interesting on and off the court.
No, and these 2 coaches that are going at it tonight have exchanged some pleasantries before.
Don't tune out before the handshake line.
No, don't go to Skyline Chili or go to some New Jersey Italian establishment before this game is over, because it could be very interesting. Sean Miller, every time that I've spoken with him, it comes off to me how much he's enjoyed being a Big East coach, because he was in this league as a player at Pittsburgh. What have you seen in Sean, and how much he enjoys the night in, night out nature of this conference?
Yeah, I think I'd go back to when we were in Hartford. It was Sunday, January 28th, and Xavier just lost by 43 points to UConn. It's like, where do you go from here? It's like, well, we got Rick Pitino coming to town on Wednesday. Right. So I think it's really just, he's, especially with a young team where he's trying not to get too high on the highs and too low with the lows. A good way to do that is to have a nightly challenge of Villanova's coming to town, St. John's is coming to town. We got to go to Seton Hall on a short week, and now they're finally getting their rest this weekend since December was their last off weekend. So I think it's really helped adapt with a young team, just trying to manage the ebbs and flows of playing in the Big East, where it's a nightly challenge, it's a nightly rock fight, and you're in the mix.
Reed Shelby at the Cincinnati Enquirer. Reed Jerry, the Asbury Park Press. These guys are on X. You know them, Xavier and Seton Hall fans. Shelby and Jerry, thanks so much for joining us on Shootaround.
Thanks, John.
We'll be back after this. Break out the bubbly for Bubble Watch.
Fresh, warm hot dogs.
When I'm not selling hot dogs, I invest in a fund that advances innovations like robotics.
Fresh, warm hot dogs straight out of my torso. One for you, one for you. Oh, you're a messy one.
Cool, right? So cool.
Anyone can become an agent of innovation with Invesco QQQ, a fund that gives you access to NASDAQ 100 innovations.
Hot dogs. Fresh, warm hot dogs.
Before investing.
Yeah, the time keeps ticking. Life's mad short, so we gotta keep living. Hey, so turn it up. Hey, don't ever stop. Party with the fun, bring the juice. All the haters, all the players, cut them loose. It's time to shine, best believe. Yeah, it's time to shine, yes indeed. We're my girls, now let's roll. We're turning it up. Yeah, it's time to go. Where the party at? Gonna bring some soul. Yeah, we hit with the good stuff, yeah. Where the party at? Where the party at?
Electricity in the building, because this is the big one. This is the Big East, folks.
Nothing's going to be easy.
How about that?
Sold out Madison Square Garden, the mecca of basketball.
Listen to this building. It's absolutely rocking.
Cross court, jams it down. Big fella. Champions of the Big East tournament.
Welcome back to the Big East Road Trip from the Prudential Center ahead of Seton Hall and Xavier coming up. at 7 Eastern time. It's over on CBS Sports Network. Hey, check out the Big East Road Trip Fan Sweepstakes. Look at the link on your screen. There's also QR codes over here for the fans in attendance by the baskets. So check out the QR codes. You could win an all-inclusive trip to either the Big East men's or women's tournament. The women's tournament is at Mohegan Sun. The men's tournament is at Madison Square Garden. Either way you slice it, that's one heck of a time. An all-inclusive trip to the men's or women's tournament in the Big East Conference. Check it out, our Big East Road Trip Fan Sweepstakes. All right, it's now time for Bubble Watch. The bubble is active as ever, and in the Big East, you could be talking about as many as 6 teams that are on it right now. I'm talking about Butler, Providence, St. John's, Villanova, Seton Hall, and this Xavier team. According to Mike DeCourcy's bracketology, he's got Providence and Butler just in the last 4 in. Now, Providence helps their cause last night with a win over St. John's. Butler loses at home to Marquette. I don't think that knocks Butler out of the tournament right now. Just my belief. Butler went on the road. They beat Creighton. They beat Marquette. However, Butler has Creighton at home this weekend. It would behoove them to take advantage of that opportunity and get the Blue Jays. In the first 4 out, you have Seton Hall and St. John's. St. John's, they just don't have enough right now. They have 2 quadrant 1 wins. That's not enough. This Seton Hall team has 4 of those. And this Seton Hall team beat Connecticut. Only Seton Hall and Kansas can say they've beaten UConn. That is a feather in your cap on Selection Sunday if you're on the bubble. If you're on the bubble and you're the Pirates, you can be in the room and say to those people with your resume, we've done something that nobody else really has done, with the exception of the Jayhawks at Allen Fieldhouse, where Kansas wins every game at Allen Fieldhouse. That's to be expected. Elsewhere on the bubble, Villanova's in the next 4 out. I know what you might be thinking. Villanova is still on the bubble? Well, yes, because they beat North Carolina. They won the battle for Atlantis. They have some strong wins. They beat Texas Tech, which is a good win for them as well. In league, they went to Creighton and won. They've got to accumulate wins now. Villanova's got to stack wins together. They still have Georgetown twice. They're here. This is going to be a big game when Villanova comes to the Prudential Center. That could be a huge bubble game. So the Wildcats are not dead yet. They're not out of the picture yet. If they put some wins together, they still got to play Providence again as well. They are a team that if they've got a case on Selection Sunday, the committee asks questions. Who have you played? Who have you beaten? That's the key when you're on the bubble. And that's why this Seton Hall team is on the bubble. And with a win tonight in an updated bracketology, I think would be right back into the swing of things in the NCAA tournament because of the victories that they have over Connecticut and Marquette and the fact that they don't have any quadrant 4 losses. They have a couple of puzzling losses. One came Sunday at Villanova. They did not show up for that game. If you don't show up in the first 5 minutes tonight, you'll lose this game by 15 points. Xavier will blitz you. Olivari, McKnight, they can get after it. Desmond Claude gets after it as well. On the Seton Hall side of things, it is imperative that Kadari Richmond shows up and plays his best basketball for the Hall this evening. The Big East tournament starts 4 weeks from right now. There is not an event like it, and this year it's going to be absolutely stacked because you've got the number 1 team in the country, UConn, which has not won the Big East tournament since Kemba Walker in 2011. You've got Marquette coming off the Big East tournament title last year. You've got Creighton. They've been in the title game 4 times. They've never won it. And then you got a whole bunch of teams that are dangerous, but could they string a run together? For now, 2 more Big East games on the docket tonight, starting at 7 on CBS Sports Network, the Hall and Xavier, then UConn at DePaul, and then a big weekend ahead. Seton Hall will be taking on St. John's. The Xavier Musketeers will look to keep their push going towards the NCAA tournament, and number 1 Connecticut welcomes in number 4 Marquette, Saturday, 3 Eastern time on Fox. Hey, don't forget, in Big East women's basketball, President's Day on Fox, UConn will take on Creighton. That will be a heavyweight showdown in Big East women's basketball. We're just a few weeks away from the tournament at Mohegan Sun. Connecticut, Creighton, Marquette, all having a great year. Tony Bazzella's Seton Hall Pirates, they're defending at a high level. They'll be in the mix as well. For Dee Seymour, for Danny Lemoyne, for Nicole Early, for Scott Heck, for our entire crew tonight, thanks to Shelby Dermer, thanks to Jerry Carino, thanks to Gary Cohen. I'm John Fanta. We thank you, Newark. We thank you, the Prudential Center, for having us on the Big East road trip. Pirates and Musketeers, Big East basketball coming tonight.